So today we got some big news when it comes to the good herb. From small home growers getting busted to legalization updates that you guys have been asking for in states like North Carolina, Idaho, and Alabama. Plus there's a revitalized push across America for rescheduling, or even better yet, descheduling of the good herb, as more and more senators are now pushing Congress to fully legalize and fully wipe out all past convictions. But let's start off right here in Louisiana, because a 71-year-old man was arrested and made an example of simply for growing his own plants. Now, if that isn't ridiculous and a complete waste of police time, then I don't know what is, because having a look at this, you guys can see he's barely got 2 plants there right now. There are a few little solo cups filled with a couple seedlings, and that's about it. But this is what police is wasting their time on, running down some of these citizens to arrest them and prosecute them for. But these types of things don't only happen in states like Louisiana, because also just a couple days ago over in Alabama, a state trooper seized 185 pounds of flour during a truck inspection. Have a look.
New tonight, the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency says an Oregon man is in custody after what you see on your screen was recovered in St. Clair County. Aaliyah says Dejun Soon was driving an 18-wheeler on Interstate 20 right near mile marker 143 when they discovered 23 boxes of marijuana with a total weight of 185 pounds. Soon now faces multiple charges, including drug trafficking. His bond is set at $1.5 million.
Now, what we see from those 2 examples are 2 complete different ends of the spectrum. On one hand, you have a home grower who's just growing a couple plants seemingly for himself, but on the other hand, you have someone traveling interstate with over 185 pounds of herb in a truck. Now for me, the old guy who's just growing at home, he's really not affecting anyone. And despite the fact that they claim he had distribution materials, it appears to me that that was simply just for personal consumption. Now, if you thought that things in states like Louisiana and Alabama were bad, then you haven't seen anything yet. Because over in Alabama, just a couple months ago, lawmakers were debating a new marijuana bill that will force teachers to call the police if students are smelling like weed. Have a look.
Well, some Birmingham area state legislators are in disagreement about a proposed bill related to marijuana.
It requires teachers to report students who smell like marijuana to law enforcement and the Department of Human Resources. CBS 42 Scott Menshaw's covering this for us. He spoke with the bill's sponsor and a lawmaker who opposes this legislation. Scott?
Yeah, sure I did. Representative Patrick Sellers, who introduced this bill, says it came about from educators who told him they are seeing students' health impacted by their parents' marijuana use. Representative Wadden Gavan says this bill will not help students, but only punish their parents.
Exactly.
A proposed state bill will make it law for teachers and other mandatory reporters to notify DHR and law enforcement when a child smells like marijuana. It also makes smoking marijuana in a car where a child is present a Class A misdemeanor. According to the bill, the reports will be investigated in the same way reports of child abuse and neglect are. The bill was introduced by Representative Patrick Sellers, who says it doesn't add additional penalties, but it does provide protection for children.
Already there's a penalty because marijuana is illegal, drugs are illegal, but to add the educational piece to it is so important. People need to be or understand or educated on the concerns of secondhand marijuana smoke and what it does to a child.
The educational piece is a course being crafted by the Alabama Department of Public Health, which will be mandatory for anyone who violates the bill to take.
It has secondhand marijuana smoke, has so many different concerns to it, from developmental delays to asthma to bronchitis, and so many things that affect children at those young ages.
Representative Wandalyn Gavan is opposed to the bill. She believes it's unnecessary.
I disagree with the entire bill. First of all, we already have marijuana laws on the books. It's already illegal to smoke marijuana. So if the police comes up and they see that someone is smoking marijuana or they smell the marijuana, guess what? Again, that goes to probable cause. So now you're having it where people can literally call and say, I think someone, how in the heck are you going to be able to determine that someone is sitting in their car smoking marijuana? That doesn't make sense. It's not logical.
Now you guys can see how this can open up a whole can of worms, because we're not talking about a fully legal state, mind you. We're talking about a prohibition state over in Alabama. In Alabama, there's no legal recreational use, so what they're doing is literally weaponizing your neighbors so that they call police and basically rat on you. And the funny thing about this whole thing is that this is exactly what anti-herb groups want, because according to this, a drug reform group has laid out options to address high THC marijuana risks without returning to criminalization. And this may be one of those options. Literally calling the police and ratting on your neighbors. And we've seen it proposed in other states already, like Arizona, where lawmakers are encouraging folks to call the police if there is a smell which comes into your home. And another way that anti-herb lawmakers and prohibitionists are framing this whole thing is that it's causing a lot more issues when it comes to driving under the influence. Check it out.
The state police are stopping more people driving under the influence of cannabis since legalization back in 2021. And troopers report about a 20% increase in drug-related DWI arrests statewide. Officials warn cannabis can be highly potent, in some cases even stronger than alcohol.
March of 2021, it was legalized here in New York with the cannabis. We see a 20% increase on just New York State Police DWI drug arrests. We see about a 17% increase on DWI alcohol arrests when it comes from 2023 to 2025. So we are seeing an increase in the cannabis use and people behind the wheel. And unfortunately, even with the PSAs and different things that we're putting out there, we do see an increase in not only alcohol, but also in cannabis, both of those categories. And when you're talking about the cannabis, you're not comparing beer to cannabis. Cannabis is more in the realm of, if you were to think alcohol to cannabis, you're more thinking whiskey and above.
So according to state troopers and professional fairmongers, the good herb is not equivalent to a single beer, but rather it's equivalent to a bottle of liquor, which is absolutely mind-blowing and completely inaccurate. Because anyone who knows anything about anything knows that if you consume an entire bottle of liquor, you're probably going to get alcohol poisoning and wind up in the hospital. But on the other hand, if you smoke that whole J or consume that whole eighth, you're probably just going to be really hungry, eat everything in your fridge, get the munchies, and fall asleep. Now thankfully, these fairmongering reefer madness narratives are not stopping change at the federal level, because we've already discussed rescheduling. We've already heard reports about President Trump setting up a descheduling committee, and on top of that, according to this article, Trump proposes to keep protecting state medical marijuana laws from federal interference, and I think that that's a good thing. And on top of that, President Trump has put medical cannabis protections in the budget. But while all that is happening, as we know, the media is pushing back on everything that President Trump does, even when it comes to the good herb. Have a look.
As cannabis use becomes more common, experts warn to watch out how often you use it and the amount you take in. Here's Alex Stone.
A new study published in the journal Addiction suggests it may be helpful to view cannabis use by units. Similar to how alcohol use is measured, researchers looking at the THC habits of over 150 teens and young adults over the course of a year noted how likely they were to develop a cannabis-related illness. At 5 milligrams per unit, young adults were at risk for developing a cannabis use disorder. At about 8.3 units of cannabis, roughly the equivalent of 1 joint of high-potency marijuana. For teens, the threshold was around half that. If your child has been overusing cannabis in any form, joints, vapes, pills, or gummies, it's time to check in with your pediatrician. Free confidential help is available 24/7 by calling or texting 800-662-HELP.
So despite the fact that time and time again we see all the benefits that this good plant has to offer, we see situations where media is pushing the fear-mongering narratives and literally telling you that high-potency THC, even 1 joint of it, could cause you to end up in real issues and you may have to go to the doctor. But on the flip side, parents of kids with terminally ill diseases are literally saying that rescheduling could unlock research to treat rare diseases. And this is according to a parent of a terminally ill child. Have a listen.
Who am I in all of this? I am a palliative father. My son battles a terminal illness, and I fight for his life every day. For 16 years, I've been a VA hospice volunteer, sitting at the bedside of dying warriors who've served this country, honoring the promise that no veteran dies alone. My advocacy for my son and veterans centers on palliative care and access to cannabinoids, rescheduling marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 to unlock research and healing, especially for rare diseases. I'm also an advocate against child trafficking, and I implore you to stand against it at home and abroad. These realities made me something the Chinese did not anticipate in the lawfare, a father who had faced bigger, scarier dragons than them and their 16 lawyers. Being with my son and veterans, I realized we are not chemical beings to be pumped full of pharmaceuticals. We are electrical beings that need to be filled with light. Our bodies run on bioelectric fields, energy pathways, and natural frequencies. This is biology, that every cell has an electrical charge, every muscle movement, every heartbeat is the result of an electrical charge or discharge. The EKG and EEG medical tests are measuring electrical impulses in the heart and brain. As a palliative father, I tried everything else to help my son. Only energetic medicine, including sound and light therapies, brought him relief when nothing else did. And this is the next wave of healthcare, and the intellectual property behind it is pure gold.
So this is the next wave of healthcare, and when you have parents who are literally fathers to terminally ill kids and they're calling for rescheduling, then you know you're probably on the right track. And partner that with the fact that even Hawaii senators are pushing Congress to federally legalize the good herb and clear all past convictions, then you know you're probably doing something right.
Request the United States Congress to remove cannabis from the Federal Controlled Substances Act, provide support to states that are clearing defendants' records of cannabis offenses. Our recommendation here is to pass the SCR and SR with amendments, technical amendments, including specifying in the title of the request is for Congress to enact legislation to cause the other actions to occur, and delete 2 clauses about alcohol and tobacco as they seem irrelevant to this particular reso. Questions or concerns? If not, Senator Gabbard.
On SCR 64 and SR 58, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments with all members present. Are there any no votes or reservations? Hearing none, the measures are adopted.
So even over in Hawaii, senators have approved 2 resolutions calling on Congress to federally legalize the good herb, support state efforts to clear people's past convictions, and take steps to facilitate access to banking services. And those are all big moves, really important at the federal level. And change at the federal level could literally signal change in other states like North Carolina, because currently North Carolina is fighting the battle for legalization. And according to this article, the governor of North Carolina has stepped up the push for legalization as the state commission issued a new report. Now we're going to get into that in a little bit more detail, as well as show you guys what's happening over in Idaho as well as Maine, because those changes are really big. But before we do, just a quick reminder, if you're getting value from this video, please do like, share and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support us further, join the ICANN VIP Bean Club or cop some merch from our merch store. We got that new American grown hoodie. Use that code ICANNTHC and grab it now. And if you happen to be a home gardener, try the ICANN Organics. Use the code LEGAL. It works on the bundle and the seeds.
Marijuana is illegal in North Carolina, but billions of dollars are spent in this state on illicit pot and other intoxicating cannabis products. Now, a state advisory group wants lawmakers to legalize marijuana and regulate the cannabis. WRAL State Government reporter Caroline Yaffa is live in Raleigh to explain why the group thinks regulation will make cannabis safer. Caroline?
I'm here on Glenwood South, and there are several shops that sell legal hemp products. Now, the North Carolina Advisory Council on Cannabis, they want the state to let these stores sell marijuana and regulate intoxicating cannabis products. Now, here, by doing so, it could generate millions of dollars for the state and make cannabis safer. Inside this shop, customers come in for a variety of legal products.
People come in looking for pre-rolls, gummies, drinks, like a wide variety of the products that we offer.
Ian Bradshaw says these are some of the most popular products people ask for.
If it were like legal marijuana, we'd definitely be able to sell that for sure.
Hemp is legal in the state because it has low levels of THC, the stuff that gets you high. Marijuana has higher levels of THC, and billions of dollars of stuff is bought illegally. Other intoxicating cannabis products are unregulated. The council says the absence of enforcement and regulatory guardrails have created uncertainty for customers, responsible businesses, healthcare providers, educators, parents, and law enforcement. Legalization would bring regulations over packaging, potency, and sales to unregulated cannabis products. Governor Josh Stein previously told WRAL that North Carolina needs safeguards.
It is the Wild West out there. The idea that we have a system where this product, which is a drug that can get you high, is for sale out there without any restrictions on how it's sold, to me is insane.
Lawmakers from both parties have introduced bills to regulate cannabis products, though none have become law. The group says the state could reap hundreds of millions in tax revenue if lawmakers allowed stores to sell marijuana to adults. That could fund public health education, enforcement, and efforts to keep the products out of the hands of kids.
So legalization could open up lots of avenues for profit for the state, and that profit can go towards many programs that residents of that state can get benefits from. And like I always say, in states where there's no legal, medical, or recreational laws, THC hemp becomes even more important, and that's the case over in North Carolina. And now North Carolina hemp farmers are facing tons of uncertainty, especially considering the fact that possible THC law changes are looming. Check it out.
North Carolina's hemp industry is panicking right now because by November, most of what they sell will be illegal under federal law. And these are those businesses behind those THC products you've been seeing pop up all over the place, from corner stores to gas stations to vape shops to the massive national chains like Total Wine. It is big business, and many people here like that business. They like the products because in a lot of ways they offer the same results as marijuana in a state where all forms of marijuana are illegal. And that kind of confuses a lot of people. So we put together this quick little explainer. This is hemp. This is marijuana. They are siblings. This might be a little easier to explain using another plant. So let's use wild cabbage. You see, this plant is the oldest ancestor of some of your favorite veggies: broccoli, kale, collards, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. All of them come from wild cabbage. We have those variations because of selective breeding. While some of those siblings might be bushy like broccoli and others leafy like kale, they all share a common ancestor and common traits. And with hemp and marijuana, one of those traits is THC, specifically Delta-9 THC, which is the primary compound that gets you high. Now, marijuana has lots of it. Hemp has very little, but it does exist in both plants.
So that makes it absolutely clear. And in states where there's no legal medical herb or no legal recreational herb, THC hemp becomes even more important. Because when you leave things in the hands of lawmakers and hope that they'll legalize for the people, most times they're not going to do that. In fact, they'll go against what the people want. And that's exactly what we're seeing happening over in Idaho. Because the Idaho Senate has passed a resolution urging the voters not to sign a medical marijuana ballot petition. And in other words, this resolution literally urges voters in the state to reject any ongoing efforts to place an initiative to legalize medical herb on the November ballot. Idaho, they're simply not on it.
Medical marijuana is facing an uphill battle in Idaho. Lawmakers have passed a resolution urging voters to say no if the Medical Cannabis Act appears on the November ballot. I'm your Canyon County neighborhood reporter Victoria Rodriguez, looking into the resolution and the efforts by the Natural Medicine Alliance of Idaho to gather enough signatures to put it before voters. On Wednesday, the House State Affairs Committee and the House floor debated Senate Concurrent Resolution 127. The resolution, presented by Republican Representative Jason Monks, urges Idahoans to reject the Idaho Medical Cannabis Act if it appears on the November ballot. During the debate, some lawmakers said legislation could bring increased crime, impaired driving, health risks, and new costs for the state.
And I have traveled not only this country, but across the globe. And I'm here to tell you, everywhere that they have legalized marijuana, you see much more homelessness, you see people that are just completely out of it, and it is not something I want to see in Idaho.
Other lawmakers echoed concerns over crime and social issues. Republican Representative Jaron Crane of District 12 compared cities with legal marijuana to Boise.
It feels different walking in downtown Portland and Seattle than it does walking in Boise. And so the cost will definitely always be higher than the benefit of a projected tax revenue.
Now let me make this absolutely clear, because this is something that I've said time and time again. In states and cities which have legal recreational herb, you may notice a decline in society simply because those Democrat lawmakers in those states have implemented soft on crime policies. It's not down to the good herb. It's literally not the good herb causing chaos in society, but rather the lawmakers that are giving these criminals a slap on the wrist, letting them off easily, and implementing these soft on crime policies. That's actually what literally causes the decline of these cities.
Violent crime spiraling out of control in New York City. A nurse visiting Manhattan died over the weekend after a deranged homeless man slammed her to the ground in Times Square, moments after mugging another woman. Meanwhile, a mentally ill woman shoving someone into a subway train last week. In both cases, the suspects were set free without bail from previous crimes. thanks to a 2020 bail reform law.
I could point to Portland, Oregon, Los Angeles, California, Denver, Colorado. There's so many different blue liberal states and cities which implement these soft on crime policies that literally affect law-abiding citizens. And then prohibitionists point to those cities and point to those states and say legalization has completely ruined it, when that's not actually accurate.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing is that everyone is now realizing that the soft on crime revolving door criminal justice system has been an unmitigated disaster. And the voters and the constituents are making very clear to their elected officials that we are no longer going to tolerate chaos and disorder in our streets. We want safe communities. I think the voters are making themselves clear, and we're starting to see it nationwide. Voters have they've had enough of it.
And the truth is, another one of those states which people point to is over in Maine, because Maine is legalized for quite some time now, and they do have Democrat lawmakers which have implemented soft on crime policies, so much so that now lots of illegal grow operations are popping up in Maine. And according to this article, Maine lawmakers have now rejected a bill to legalize consumption lounges. While on the other hand, to get a grip on all that's been going on because of those soft on crime policies, they're trying to implement tracking and testing bills which will literally shutter the industry.
Advocates for medical cannabis filled the State House today, speaking out against a proposal that would require testing and tracking of the program and add a potency cap to usage. Opponents of the bill claim it's an attack on the program as a whole. They have concerns it could lead to the closure of small business caregivers by adding new costs, which will ultimately affect consumers. Supporters call it common sense, saying patients should be sure the product is the correct dosage and that they're protected from being exposed to toxic contaminants such as heavy metals, mold, and pesticides.
There are over 1,000, small operators in the medical cannabis industry, and they all employ, 3 to a dozen employees. But there's over 110,000 patients who are currently happily accessing this program, choosing the medical program over the adult use program, despite all of the propaganda around medical.
A statement from the Maine Public Health Association, which supports the bill, says in part, it safeguards patients, cracks down on illicit grows, and supports small operators. The bottom line is that this bill will help ensure the integrity of Maine's medical cannabis program, and that's a good thing for patients and small businesses.
So even in fully legal and prohibition states, we're still grappling with this whole issue. But let me know what you guys think about that, everything that we discussed in today's video. And here's the question of the day for you guys. Do you guys think the rescheduling is actually going to happen anytime soon? And if it does, is it going to be a good thing or a bad thing? Let me know where you guys stand on that in the comment section down below. Now, coming up in our next video, the DEA has dropped a massive bombshell when it comes to the good herb. And it's not what you may think. This may actually signal good news for our favorite plant. It's absolutely crazy. Check it out. It's coming up right now.